This person commented, Walt Disney hired a bunch of Nazi scientists after World War II. I know he was fascinated with the rocket science, but for more info, read the book by Jim Mars, The Rise of the Fourth Reich. Another person added, Walt Disney also hated Jews with a passion that would make Kanye and David Duke blush. Yet he won't get canceled in this lifetime. The mouse makes way too much money off his name. And I think you guys would already know this. If he doesn't like black people, doesn't like Jewish people, doesn't like really anyone besides white men, he clearly doesn't like women. There are reports indicating that Walt Disney preferred to keep women at low-ranking roles, so he wasn't going to sit at a table and discuss any big business deals or anything really with any woman. And when women did reach these certain roles in animation, he made it much more difficult for them. In the 30s and 40s, women had the role of inkers in animated films, meticulously hand-painted each cell for the creation of Snow White. Women reportedly worked over 80 hours per week. And that's around the same time they were going on strike against their workplace, so you already know they weren't paid properly. And it seems like Walt Disney kind of got off on watching his employees struggle, work for so long, work for so little, pushing people to their breaking point. And I don't know if it's something about his father that led him to do this, but it was widely reported.
Walt found pleasure in bringing his employees to tears and often demanding impossible deadlines just so he could break them. Those close to him say he was desperately trying to recreate his childhood.
Despite these women working on Snow White, when they started to ask for more, he pushed back. Walt Disney sent out a rejection letter to a woman saying, women do not do any of the creative work in connection with preparing the cartoons for the screen, as that work is performed entirely by young men. So he made it clear. He blatantly said that he does not want women in the workplace. They are not creative, and that's something for young men to do. Which, could you imagine that happening nowadays? Like if, Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk said like, oh no, I refuse to work with women. They are just not capable. They're not creative. Yet he was able to say it clearly and move on without a problem. He also participated in American politics and strongly opposed communism. He displayed support towards companies and projects with questionable methods and even exposed his own animators as potential communists. Back then, it was a different environment with the Cold War. I mean, people were scared and paranoid of communists. Like, I remember hearing about like the government like went through people who could be suspected as communists, or those in the military, and it even happened to like LGBT people. I'm sure he didn't like those either. So I'm sure anyone that was, part of a community he did not agree with or went against his beliefs, he tried to seek them out and expose them. According to sources, Walt Disney transformed himself from being affectionately known as Uncle Walt, everyone loved him, to becoming a distressing figure. He segregated Disney based on gender and declined to engage with wage negotiations with employees. So he went from, the uncle you wanted to the uncle you were scared of, the boss from hell. And that's difficult to, I guess, maintain this like happy, joyful place of Disney and, animation and cartoons when you are a despicable person. Like, you don't even really like kids. Here's an old clip of him talking, and a baby will not stop crying. Part of the reason why I haven't gone to Disney much ever. I've gone once in Florida and once in California. I didn't really grow up watching a ton of Disney, so it's never really been my thing to go to these places. But if they have an adults night, just the children, that would be hard for me.
Years of working with them round the clock, Walt Disney was losing his patience with children.
Welcome to Disneyland, the place... So the place where children are... Oh my God. Please. Anywho, the place where children are given a voice. Will you shut up?
He developed a hatred for kids and was deliberately cruel to them.
You don't fancy looking at me while I'm talking to you, huh? Oh, that's fucking rude. What are you looking at, the castle?
Parents also claimed that he was deliberately scaring children, but he argued that his new characters came with important moral messages.
And here we are with a new character, Skinless Jim. Skinless? Jim ain't got no skin. Oh no. What are you gonna do about that? Jim shed children's skin. Well, that's good of you that you want to share.
Wait, so that's a cartoon that he has created that wants the skin of children, I guess, to scare children. I guess that didn't land. They should make a horror film about that.
Disney was eventually punished for his actions.
So the judges said you can't make any films involving kids for a while.
You're kidding. We just finished animating loads of films. Some of them are full of kids.
Well,
I mean, what the hell are we going to do about Snow White and the 7 weird-looking...
Snow White and the 7 weird-looking... he is just imagine him running for president. It kind of reminds me of someone, maybe someone in modern history. But I do want to talk a little bit about the workplace there. Specifically, theories of Walt being a person who is into minors and someone who has been influential in the Illuminati space. I mean, we talked about him getting into American politics, so let's talk about how much control he really wants. I also want to talk about his employees, because you guys know, like, he went through his employees, and even nowadays, since he's been gone, like, he's had problematic employees at Disney, and it just kind of seems like there's been a long culture of really nasty people running that place, so they're hiring like-minded people. Like, here's a modern take. At least 35 employees of Disney World have been arrested in connection with messing around with children, crimes, offenses since 2006. The news organization CNN reported that an investigation discovered that staff, including a concierge, a training tour guide, a bunch of people who are running the park and around your children were arrested. According to the report, a night shift manager was discovered writing a Christian church service while watching child content. That is so, it really is, like, you guys have heard about, like, the churches and their scandals. So yeah, it's giving that. Actually, I could do a podcast episode about that. You know, on the podcast, we get a little bit more controversial. Detectives carried out stings and received explicit messages from suspects that agreed to meet at the property. Not at the property. So actually at the park as well. And they had cameras to record every move. One man named Robert was charged with soliciting a child to commit an inappropriate act. He had pled not guilty after saying that he was in fact trying to protect the 14-year-old girl from harm and that he loved working at the resort. Keep in mind that this man actually has 4 children of his own, and he says, my children won't believe that I'm guilty of this crime. But yeah, you know, the messages and those type of things, they say a different story. Another creep named Alan faced 5 charges. He was arrested after sending disgusting and explicit text messages to an undercover detective. And this guy thought it was a 14-year-old boy he was going to meet. This, oh God, what a creep. And that's why he's got 5 counts. Alan admitted that he hoped by traveling to meet the 14-year-old boy that things would lead to intimacy. It also seems like while they started investigating him, they found that he was guilty of doing things like this and being successful in the past. Of course, Disney has to explain why this is going on, because there are a lot of facilities, companies that employ a lot of people, but we don't have record numbers like this.
And there's Xavier Jackson. He's 27.
He is accused of sending sexual images to someone he thought was a 14-year-old girl.
Oh, did I mention that he just happens to be a lifeguard at the Polynesian Resort for Disney? You think there's a few children around there?
Sheriff Grady Judd identified several other Disney employees.
I mean, at this point, there are so many people on this list. How do you even go through every person? One ex-employee actually admitted to taking hundreds of upskirt videos of women at the theme park. Which, if you guys don't know what that is, if I ever see any man doing that to a woman, I will go over and I will stomp their phone. Ugh. I've had people record me too in times where I'm like, I don't want to be recorded. Like, please do not record me. And I'm like, what? Like, aren't we in the age of consent? Like, where's my consent? I'm telling you, I don't want to be recorded. So upskirt recordings when someone's like taking their phone, like putting it up someone's skirt to record what's going on up there, weirdo. The reports write that this guy had a whole different definition of the happiest place on earth. Police arrested a Walt Disney World employee after a security guard caught him recording an upskirt video of an 18-year-old woman. His name is Jorge. He was working at the Star Wars retail store at the Disney's Hollywood Studios. A woman was shopping for lightsabers with her fiance when a guard reported this. It actually turns out that Jorge admitted to taking more than 500 upskirt videos of guests during his 6 years working at the theme park. He said he keeps the videos on his phone as a guilty pleasure and he uses them to get off to. Great. Wow. I'm not great. I mean, gross. I mean, just, geez. I mean, he's giving us everything. I guess he's been waiting to get caught. He actually faces charges of third-degree felony video voyeurism for recording female guests without their knowledge. Now, tell me how someone has over 500 instances of recording someone. And like, you know, Disney's heavily monitored. They're constantly watching the cameras. You cannot tell me that he was not spotted before in the past, like doing this. Like, how do you get away with it? Like, I mean, 100 times, that's a lot, but 500 times? And here's some more.
76 images of horrible, frightening child. In this particular operation, we did not identify any victims that we could rescue. And that's our primary goal. Now, folks, Children have been victimized through video clips and or still photos, as we targeted these folks who are victimizing children with just the swapping and selling and looking at child. But you're going to hear much more in just a minute. Paul Val, he's 40, from Davenport. He's married. He works at Disney World at Cosmic Ray's restaurant. In fact, he just recently moved to Polk County from Indiana, and he moved here specifically to work at Disney World.
It's almost like this guy thought that this place would be a safe haven for him and other people like himself. I mean, just looking at the facts about Walt Disney and the person he was, it's kind of easy to understand why there are such dark and dreadful things going on at his facilities. Mr. Walt Disney spent a lot of time at his studio and had his own private accommodation at the center of Disneyland. He suffered many episodes of insomnia, for which he would take alcohol and tranquilizers to go to sleep. He would go for weeks without setting foot on Hopi Hills, his estate, or seeing his family. So he was constantly at the Disneyland, sleeping in his bunker. Now, there are people who theorize that there's a lot more darkness at play when it comes to Walt Disney and why he stayed at Disneyland and his connections to important, powerful people. I mean, in his work, you can see, like this, for example, there's the words "ask about Illuminati." In one of his cartoons, they are mentioning the Illuminati, telling us to ask about them, and this is a child's picture. There's also a club called Club 33 that's like on the premise, and you have to pay a lot of money to be a part of this. I'm not entirely sure how exclusive it is, but the way it's described just sounds kind of cultish.
Disney has a club, Club 33, where you have to pay 6 figures just to join. You pretty much have to be invited. It's a very exclusive club. The only real benefits of this club are like these secret restaurants in Disney.
Oh, I heard those are good though.
You don't want to know what's on that menu. Apparently, there's a club within that club where they throw private parties for the elite, the ultra wealthy. People have like snuck in and taken pictures inside these places, and they have like artwork and statues of Baphomet, and they say that Walt Disney, in his parks, created a bunch of secret passageways, and there can be access through the Club 33 rooms. Why would they even need secret passageways?
We've all heard the conspiracies about these Disney projects and some of these messages being within his films, just blatantly out there. I mean, if you Google subliminal messaging in Disney movies, you'll see a lot. One person wrote, "I remember when I researched about Walt Disney, I found that he was a 33-degree Freemason and was into brainwashing through subliminal messaging. This is why now Walt Disney today has distanced itself from the former versions." And if you do look at some of those older cartoons, like this one of Mickey, you'll see it's pretty inappropriate. He's got his, wiener sticking out, and he's sticking it into cheese to make Swiss cheese. Pretty nasty.